In case you need to, like I said, turn cameras off or whatever. I'll be sharing screens most of the time, so you really probably won't be on video anyway. So here we go. We are going to start with something I have not done in a workshop in a very long time, and that is a good old Kahoot. And I'm assuming this is going to work. We're about to find out. I think it's going to. So you'll need your device, obviously. So I think you're now seeing the Kahoot screen and the pin number. You're going to go to kahoot.it. And I'll see if I can get that in the chat there. Yep. All right, kahoot.it. Oh, it didn't give you a link. I'm sorry, it didn't give you a clickable link. Anyway, you can type that in pretty easily, kahoot.it. And then you want the pin number of 273-0132. Now, I'm trying this a little bit differently. I'm actually running this through the Zoom app. This is a first go round on this. I did it earlier today, but it was just me playing against myself, and it seemed to work. So hopefully this won't cause any pain for anybody. And then you should be able to also, I clicked the setting for you to also see the questions on your own device. Because one reason I stopped doing Kahoots on Zoom is because early on, I'm talking real early, like April 2020, early on, you couldn't see the questions on your own device. And that was really awkward on Zoom because you could see my screen, but then the answers were on your device and there was lag times and stuff like that. So I believe you should be able to see everything on your screen. All right, it's just six quick questions about inflation, some about inflation in general, some about headlines and things that are in the news. The winners will get, and you probably can't see it because you see the Kahoot, but I'll show you. You get a nice fancy Econ Express shirt that I am currently modeling here. If you already have one of those, which I know some people on this call do, then I'll send you a Lights Camera Budget shirt. And if you already have one of those, I'll send you an old stock market game shirt. How about that? Or hey, here's a rare item we have at the council. I'll send you the 2020 economics challenge shirts that we never used that we have 112 of sitting around the office. Those are rare. Those are not distributed publicly. It's like the team that doesn't win the Super Bowl, like when their shirts, it's like that. All right, let's see. We got, not everybody's joined in. That's okay if you don't want to participate, that's fine. It looks like we got enough people that are ready to go. And so I am going to go ahead and start the game, or at least I say I am. That's good. All right. Well. Oh, there we go. All right, a couple more people still coming in. I'm gonna stop the share real quick. I want to make sure I can get it. Oh, here we go. There it is. All right, here we go. I'm about to start the Kahoot. I'll put the share back on. All right, here we go. So check your screen. You should be able to see the questions. There you go. All right, question number 1. As of October 31st, 2021, nationwide gas average was $3.38. This is blank October 2011. Crazier than, higher than, the same as, or lower than the price of gasoline in 2011. And boom. All right, yes, it turns out it was lower than the price in 2011. This is one of the things both Princeton and I are both going to talk about in our spiel today. Oh, there's a little gas price. Yeah, it turns out I don't think I like this as much as oops, hold on a second. Click the last thing, as much as just running it on its own thing. Yeah, so it turns out that despite the fact that gas prices are quite high, they are not maybe as crazy high as everybody thinks historically. And in 2011, in October of 2011, average price of 1 gallon of gas was actually in the 350s. And it was actually even higher than that in 2012. And I'll show you that information here in just a bit. Okay. Now what I don't see, all right, I'm gonna have to stop doing it this way. Let's see, let me go back to screen share. And there we go. Cool. All right. So Laura and Jay, you're the only two. Congratulations, Laura and Jay. You're off and running there. All right, they get a little easier. Here we go. Next question. The true or false question. The Christmas price index is a real thing. True or
Chris,
false?
we're seeing your slides, not Kahoot.
Oops. How about that?
Slides for me. There's Kahoot.
There we go.
And a dancing tree.
And a dancing tree, which is always a good thing to have. Yes, the Christmas price index is indeed a real thing. And Princeton is going to talk about that here in just a bit. Let's see if that did anything to the leaderboard. No, but we got a lot more people with points now, including Lazy Turkey, which I'm very happy to see Lazy Turkey in there with some points. All right, next question. The group in charge of officially measuring inflation for the U.S. is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, blue for Inflation Council, yellow for Bureau of Economic Analysis, misspelled, and green for the Federal Reserve System. Who is in charge of officially measuring inflation for the United States? Not that dog, although I think that dog in that graphic there should be. It is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I always found my students were a little confused by that because they know the BLS, that makes sense to them that logically they would measure unemployment, right? Because they're the Bureau of Labor. It feels like there should be a Bureau of Price Statistics, but there's not. The Bureau of Labor Statistics handles both. The Bureau of Economic Analysis is in charge of your GDP numbers. In Princeton, you got some work to do there because 4 folks said the Fed is in charge of officially measuring inflation. The Fed actually uses information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as it turns out.
I'm even going to talk about a price index that BEA constructs using BLS statistics.
There you go. All right. Yeah. All right. Jay flying up the leaderboard on that one. Nice job. Jay must have answered very quickly. Here we go. Question number 4 of 6. The price of children's toys are up how much compared to last year? I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, so this is hitting close to home. 8%, 2%, 5%, or green for 10%. And special bonus points if you remember that commercial. That's on the slide there. Well, I never had those, but boy, I wanted them. And it turns out we are up 10%. 10% from last year. Yeah. Children's toys up 10%. So one of the things we're going to talk about is, all right, so that's true for children's toys, but does that mean there's been inflation in the economy? Well, not that alone. And that's something I hope you're really stressing with your students this semester. They're probably hearing so much about gas prices and food prices, but it turns out even with gas and food prices, crazy as they are, those two things don't alone dictate inflation. And in fact, there are price indices that don't even count those things. So we'll talk about that. All right, Joe. Wow, we got a lot of shifting going on here. This is great. All right, so Josh, you're 3 in a row there. And Lazy Turkey's moving up as well. All right, got 2 more questions for you. True or false here? Inflation is generally measured using a basket of goods. In theory, this basket could have whatever you wanted in it. True or false? Inflation is generally measured using a basket of goods. You have probably referred to this as a market basket with your students. In theory being the important word here, this could have whatever you wanted in it. And of course, it does not. This is true. Actually, in theory, you could put anything you wanted in the market basket. Now, whether or not it would be useful is a totally different question, and that's sort of what Princeton's going to get into in his section. But you can put whatever you want. You're just measuring a group of goods. Now, to measure inflation for the entire country, you probably want to be a little more selective, and they are, or more inclusive, I guess is what I should use. You want to try to get the things that the average household buys. But in theory, and this is an important thing for I think students to understand, it's really arbitrary what goes into the market basket. Some years lettuce is in there. There's been years where it's not. Some years, and most years milk and eggs and things like that are in. But then you could take food out if you wanted to and not measure food. You could put, in 2001 or 2, something like that, they started putting cell phone plans into the market basket or mobile service plans. That's been changed over the years. It's really arbitrary. You put whatever you wanted to in there. And in Princeton, like I said, I'll show you that. The Christmas price index is a good example of that. All right, last one. This is your last chance to move up. So right now we got, I think Jack and Laura may both have Econ Express t-shirts. So somebody needs to jump up there and steal those from them so they don't get 2. All right, here we go. Last question. The current period of inflation is being caused by red, everything on this list and a handful of other things, blue, lots of fiscal stimulus, gold, rapidly increasing demand, or green, supply chain issues. Raise your hand if you're tired of hearing the word supply chain. I have a feeling everybody should get this one right. Oh, almost. We almost had 100% there. 2 people maybe just going for like the dark horse, like, maybe I'll get some bonus points here that nobody else will get. Yeah, it turns out it's complicated, as things often are in economics. And we're going to take a look at that here in just a second. All right, here's the podium. How'd we do? Jay coming in at number 3. Number 2, Josh White. Nice way to go there, sir. Excellent work. And your winner of the Kahoot, Jack Christ. All right, nicely done. I'm writing these down. We got K Gates and Lazy Turkey with coming in there in the honorable mention. So Jack, Josh, and Jay, I'm going to, I'll send you a private message here in a minute once Princeton gets going to get your addresses. All right, so what have we learned? Well, we've learned that there's a lot of different ways to measure inflation. We have learned that what's causing the current set of inflation is particularly complicated, that it does seem like everything's higher in price, including things like children's toys and stuff like that. And we learned that there's a sort of a lot going on in the world in terms of what's surrounding inflation. So, and by the way, like everything else GCE does, you will get all of this, you'll get this entire presentation, and I'll make sure I send you Princeton's as well. I'll put the link to this one in towards the end of our time here today, and you can just directly link to it, save it in your Google Drive, and you're good to go. Yesterday on CBS This Morning, they had a little spiel about inflation. It's about 4 or so minutes here. I'll start it. I'll probably play the whole thing. It's pretty good. It's cheesy, but if you're looking for, like, I just need entry level, like my students are, not so hot this year, or I just need like a really simple explainer of what's going on, I think this does a good job of that. And so all the things that are in my slides here are linked. So if you click on this, it'll pull up the link. Now, when you try to play it, it's going to pull up an ad. You have to watch one ad. I mean, it's always an appropriate thing. It's never something that you wouldn't want to show a class, but just know that the first thing you're going to see is an ad. Then after the ad, you'll get the actual video itself. So here we go.
We've been hearing about it nonstop. Prices on just about everything going up. David Pogue has our crash course on inflation.
You might have noticed there's something crazy going on with the prices of everything. Restaurant prices are up 5% over a year ago. Cars, furniture, meat, fish, and eggs up 10 to 12%. Used cars up 24%. And gasoline. Gasoline is about 50% more expensive than it was a year ago, and heating oil has the same problem. It could be an expensive winter. At the heart of all of this is one of the fundamentals of economics, supply and demand, as illustrated today by the David Pogue Thespian Ensemble. Water here, get your dehydrated water, $4, $3, $2. When there's a lot of supply and not much demand, the prices go down. But when there's very limited supply and a lot of demand, the prices go way up. I got the last 2 tickets to see Lady Gaga, front row. Do I hear $800 each? $900? $1,000? The question is, why now? Megan?
It's just eating into people's buying power. So that has real implications on every American.
Economist Megan Green is a senior fellow at Harvard's Kennedy School and chief economist at the Kroll Institute.
What did the pandemic do to supply?
So when we shut down the whole economy, that automatically cause disruptions in parts of a really complex global supply chain. We're seeing huge backlogs in terms of containers waiting in ports and ships waiting offshore, and that's partly because of labor. So we can't find truckers or longshoremen in order to get all of these goods off of ships, into ports, and onto shelves.
All right, so what about demand?
As we reopen the economy, there's just been this surge in demand as people go out to buy stuff. On top of that, you have the Christmas holiday season coming.
The spike in gas prices is a different problem. Oil companies who lost money during the Great Lockdown are now limiting how much oil they produce.
Oil, get you oil. Oil, get you oil.
Oh, come on, man.
Hey, listen, buddy. During the lockdown, you people weren't flying or driving. We made all this oil that we couldn't sell. We are not getting burned again.
Yeah, but you're driving up the prices of gas and food.
Not my problem, pal. Oil, get you oil.
If you're old enough, you might remember the big inflationary cycle of the 70s and early 80s. Mortgage rates at 18%. But Megan Green thinks that this cycle won't be like that one.
I actually think what we're facing right now is pretty different. In the 70s, we had really high inflation and really low growth. It's called stagflation.
But during the lockdown, many companies made themselves more productive by investing in automation and other improvements.
So if we have productivity growth, it doesn't necessarily result in higher prices.
Does the fact that our government has poured trillions of dollars of cash into the economy play a part in all this?
So what the government has already done certainly has fed the flames of inflation a bit. And it was sort of designed to do that. Don't forget, the stimulus was offered in order to get the economy going and jump-started after it had been put in a deep freeze.
And what about the trillions of dollars yet to come as part of the new infrastructure spending bill?
And there I'm a lot less worried. The fiscal stimulus measures on the table are all due to be deployed over the next 10 years. A lot of it is aimed at infrastructure spending. And because we don't have many good shovel-ready projects ready to go, infrastructure spending ends up being kind of back-ended.
All right, Megan, so the big question, when will this end?
What I think, unfortunately, we need to see is both demand to wane and also this backlog in the supply chain to be alleviated. And so I think that we'll probably really see inflation abate in early 2023.
So there's your crash course in the inflationary cycle.
Sorry. And that is what that is, right? It's a crash course in inflation, right? That's not the vast, explainer of everything inflation. But I think it's a really good introduction. It hits on the core sort of concepts that we teach and talk about a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. If you had the time, if you wanted to go into that, you could really take Megan's segment in particular, if you just wanted to show that segment and pause it after some key phrases, like when she talks about the backlog of supply. She mentioned stagflation, which is not in the standards in Georgia anymore, but if you wanted to, go there and talk about that, you certainly could. This investment in technology that companies have done and what that does to productivity, just really, really rich with econ in that little video clip there. So highly, highly recommend that. I think that's good stuff. I don't have time to go into all this, but what you've got here are 5 links, and everything's linked, like I said before. So if you click on any of this stuff, it'll take you to the specific link. I'll very quickly tell you what everything is. The top one is basically an article that says that even though the prices are higher, people that wealthier folks or people that had investments or people that had 401ks or stock market investments or whatever, they did pretty well during the pandemic because the stock market sort of took off. And a lot of them don't really care about the expensive Christmas. They're still going to spend at the rate they spent before, or some are even saying they will spend more. But then that article also gets into families on the other end of the spectrum, very much the opposite. And I'm going to show you some information about that before we get out of here. The one under that to the left is an NPR story that you could either listen to, or the information is there. Inflation surges to its highest since 1990. The one next to that, I could be, sharing this a little bit better here. the one talking about this story here now, over here. That is a link to a CNBC article that gives you a little historical analysis. I don't know how many of your students know about Cheddar. That's in the bottom left down here. Cheddar is sort of like a hipster CNBC a little bit. They're the cool kids on the block. They report in a way that's a little more teenage friendly, I feel like. So that's in the bottom left. It's very similar kind of story to the others, but it's done in a slightly more engaging way. And then the bottom right is something you may not have thought of. We're only really concerned with inflation in the United States for the most part, but it's global. There is global inflation as well right now, and that's a very real thing that I don't think a lot of people are considering. This is the most scary headline to me. I just put this in here more for humor. You might not want to share this with the kids, I don't know, but for me, as a craft beer enthusiast, this is a big deal. Aluminum has already gotten expensive, and now it might get even more expensive. If you're interested in that field, this is a link to that story. Just as an example, there's a little picture here of Maui Brewing, which is in Hawaii. They received that word that their purchase minimums for aluminum cans will increase. So basically, the company is saying, look, for us to send cans to you, you're going to have to buy a certain number, right? A minimum amount. And it used to be like a truckload. But now they're telling breweries you have to buy like 5 truckloads of aluminum cans. But that's the only way it's cost effective for them. And these small craft breweries are like, 5 truckloads. Goodness, like what are we ever going to do with 5 truckloads of cans? One guy in the story even says we don't even go through 5 truckloads of cans in a year, and now we have to order that a couple of times a year. Princeton is going to get into this, but I want you to have a direct link to it. If you ever do anything with your kids about the 12 days of Christmas and the Christmas price index, this is a link to that story. And then I have a direct link to the Christmas price index here as well, but I'm going to save that for Princeton. 2 graphs, because we like graphs in economics a lot, that I think you should share with your students. I highly recommend. This one is like what you normally would show to show recessions, right? We often show that graph that shows recessions, and we show GDP going down and unemployment going up. This is inflation. And when you look at inflationary periods since World War II, this has happened 7 times. 7 times we've had extended rates of inflation. So those are all the gray areas. And you see how bad things were right after World War II. And then, of course, in the 70s. When you compare those to what we're dealing with now, what we're dealing with now doesn't seem so bad, right? Doesn't feel so bad on a graph. It feels bad to us because prior to this, we had a decade where we didn't have it. So we're not really so used to it. But numbers wise, it's actually not the end of the world, as it turns out. So I think it's a solid graph. Please show that to students, particularly for your more, the students who are really into this. And then the last graph I want to share before I do one quick thing with you is what you're looking at here is the orange line is showing year to year inflation. And then the red line is showing month to month. And I think that's a really important lesson for students, is that the way we measure inflation and the way it usually gets reported is year over year. All right, so we want to know, hey, how much was this stuff last year? How much is it today? And that's a very useful thing to know most of the time. When last year was such a big price drop, like it was here, and you can see that in that gray bar, that is a recession bar there on this particular graph. Then when you compare prices now to last year, of course, they're going to be significantly higher. Now that's not explaining everything, but that's at least part of the explanation. It was certainly part of the explanation at the beginning of the fall. You see, it's a much more steady line when you compare month to month. One thing I also think is very, very much worth pointing out, we probably all teach our students that the Fed sort of aims for this sort of 2% inflation range right here. And if you'll notice that they're actually really good at maintaining that, or at least they have been really good at maintaining that for the last decade or so. So that inflation is typically hanging out around 2%. So we're definitely above that a good bit at this point. All right, my last thing before I turn things over to Princeton here. Let me get rid of that annotation there. Clear. is, let's say you're ready to teach this, but you want to just do the basics, the really superficial. Let me introduce inflation in a super simple way to my students. I'm going to recommend you use Econ Express, of course. I'm going to recommend that. If you're not familiar with Econ Express, it is one of GCEE's newest products. It is a one-stop shop for you to learn, practice, and assess 51 different economic concepts. Concept 26 is inflation and the CPI. So when you get to Econ Express, that link, if you click the link, it'll take you directly there. But if you were to just go to econexpress.org, you would just scroll down to the macro section and you would click concept 26 and it would bring you here. Here's the really quick run through of what happens on Econ Express. We have an entire workshop based around Econ Express, so I don't want to belabor that point too much here, but I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it and that we do have stuff like this. You have 3 levels of reading. You have a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And essentially what those get into at the beginner level is some introduction to the terminology, inflation and consumer price index. At the intermediate level, it's a little more about how it's calculated. And then at the advanced level, it gets into deflation and why deflation is bad. So that's the learn. And then you want students to practice it. And what they get with this practice is they build their own market basket. So this is going to be important for what we're going to do at the end of today's workshop. They build their own market basket. So they pick sort of 5 things they want to literally put in the basket. So let's just say bread, milk, a haircut, streaming services, and a t-shirt. So you build your market basket. You, of course, are teaching stuff through this. I'm going through this very quickly, but you are, explaining what's going on, I'm hoping, with your students. And then when you click View Consumer Price Index, it does the math for you. And now you can talk about what the equations are, where this number comes from. You can click different base years, and you'll see that that the base year is always 100, and it changes the relative inflation rates based on that. So then when you're ready, you click View Inflation Rates, and it shows you both the formula, as you see here, and the actual rates of inflation based on whatever you pick. So if you pick different market baskets in different class periods, you'll get different numbers here, just like in real life. If I change the base year, you'll notice it changes the CPI, but it doesn't change the relative inflation rates. So the relative inflation rates stay the same no matter which year is the base year. And then if you want, your students can come down here and take a little assessment on inflation. So if you've never seen Econ Express before, please spend some time with it. We'd love you to visit econexpress.org. It's a direct link inside of the presentation here on slide 14. And like I said, we have whole workshops dedicated to just learning more about Econ Express. Have one this Thursday, in fact. But for now, I'm going to turn things over to Princeton Williams from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. And he's got some information about price indexes and all sorts of other goodies. So Princeton, you're up.
All right. We'll try to successfully share a screen and all of that. Come on, baby. All right. Gonna make you guys a little bit bigger so I can see those of you that are on camera. Everybody seeing something that says price stability? So good.
Yep, we're good.
All right, perfect. Chris, if you see something pop up in the chat, or hopefully you guys have the ability to take down to come off mute, you're welcome to, or Chris will shout at me if you put something in the chat. Always happy to do that. So the Fed cares a lot about price stabilities, and like Chris said, that's been a lot in the news. So let's look at a few things about price stability. You saw in those graphs that Chris was just showing you that that while overall in the past decade we've been pretty successful about keeping inflation in that 2% range, there were some scary periods in the last decade where we were dipping down towards 0, and we don't want that. We don't want what we have currently, but we also don't want inflation going towards 0. Kids really have a hard time with this, so really walk them through the idea that, think about it if you're a business owner and you are the owner of Maui Brewing Company, and you have to buy aluminum cans today at today's inflated prices, and then prices start to go down and you can charge less. You can't sell your beer for the same high prices that you thought you were going to. This is your adult example. You're stuck with expensive cans and low beer prices. That's a recipe for closing down Maui Brewing Company, right? So deflation is no better than rapid inflation. So the Fed's target is always 2%. We're going to talk about what 2% actually means. I should say here, the opinions expressed are those of the presenter and not those of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta or the Federal Reserve System. I'm quoting some officers of the bank, but even Raphael doesn't speak for his colleagues on the Federal Open Market Committee. The only one who doesn't have to issue that disclaimer is Jay Powell, but I am not Jay Powell, so disclaimer is said. It's really important, just like Chris was hinting at, for your kids to get the idea that inflation is some kind of an overall price level change, not the change in some specific good or service. So it's not college tuition, it's not gasoline, it's not coffee, it's not any one thing. Inflation is because all of those can have other factors that cause it. And these are looking familiar if you've been to one of my workshops, but reuse, and then I'm going to add to it. So if you've been to something I've done about inflation, you saw this from a grocery store in Florida. The message is that this was taken in a buy low grocery store because they wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were less expensive than the crosstown Walmart if you were buying groceries for the beach. So notice that they've constructed a market basket and they've put it there in two identical shopping carts for you to see what's in the market basket. Those goods have to be identical to compare, right? You would get it right away if Buy Low had all store brand stuff, all generic stuff, and Walmart had all the name brand stuff, right? You have to compare apples to apples, literally. In fact, you have to compare Honeycrisp apples in a certain place to Honeycrisp apples in that same place at a different time period. It is a really specific comparison, and that's how you have to construct a market basket. So, like Chris mentioned, you can make a market basket out of anything, right? So PNC Bank a long time ago started this really fun thing called the PNC Christmas Price Index, and started using the song, Partridge in a Pear Tree and 10 Lords of Leaping and all that kind of good stuff to figure out a market basket of all the gifts that a true love would give to the beloved. This year, if you gave everything in the song to your one true love, it would cost $41,000, $41,205.58, which is a 5.7% increase over 2019. Now, why would they exclude 2019 or 2020? In case some of you forgot, 2020 was a rather unusual year. And if you think about a lot of the different things that are in the song, they're all services and live performances. You've got dancers dancing and Lords of Leaping and musicians, and you've got all these people who weren't showing up for work and weren't able to conduct live performances in 2020, so they excluded them. And so basically you see that big deep V right there that basically meant that they had no comparison to last year. So they're looking at that 5.7% increase from 2019 to 2021. This is another important concept that you can use this price index for. They actually conducted, so the number that I had a minute ago, the $41,000, is if you just buy one of everything, right? On the other hand, if you buy everything, all the gifts with all the repetitions of all 12 verses, the total price would be $179,454. So that's up 5.4%. On the other hand, you can have a core index that excludes Swan, because historically, swans have been some of the most volatile prices. But interestingly enough, swans from 2019 to 2021, no change in price. So historically volatile, currently very stable. And that's another point to thinking about prices. The longer the time you look, things can look either increasingly volatile or increasingly stable. If we told it, like Chris said, if you told me, well, man, gas is really high, and I said, no, it's cheap. It's if I had been asleep for 10 years, I would wake up today thinking we had cheap gas because it's cheaper than it was 10 years ago, right? It's all about what's happened in the interim that shapes our perceptions. So some trends from the PNC price index that I just copied straight from their website. It's really getting easier to shop because, you know, Amazon has everything. No commercial for Amazon, but it makes it really easy to shop online. But we're also paying a whole lot for shipping. Price of services has increased and the price of goods has slowed in the global economy. Fuel costs, and then like we talked about, the year 2020 was just unlike any other, not to be repeated in our lifetimes, we hope.
Hey, Princeton, can I interrupt you real quick?
Absolutely.
While you were talking, I looked up, you can literally buy a pear tree on Amazon. No joke. I'm looking at it. Pixie's Garden Moonglow pear tree, potted, $115.
See, there you go.
You can buy a pear tree.
Is the partridge included? Or I guess you would have
not
to
on that
source
one. You'd have to source the partridge separately. But anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
Shipping live plants is probably different than shipping live birds and all of that. Yeah. I mean, what can you not buy on Amazon? Well, maybe a partridge, but so life is different. Some things are easier to get, some things are harder to get, and it all changes. But the point with this is not about the individual things. It's that they have used some kind of index to look at prices over time. But there's a partridge and a pear tree that, if you think about it in the song, you buy the partridge and a pear tree 12 times, right? So the pear tree is overrepresented in the sample because it's the first gift and it gets reported in every one of the repetitions of the verses, right? So whatever 12 is, and I'm blanking. Chris, what is 12? Do you remember or does somebody remember off the top?
It depends on the version, I think. Some people may have different ones. I always think of 12 drummers drumming, but then Laura
12 drummers drumming. So drummers only have to be purchased once. They only have to be hired one time to buy that drum line of 12 drummers. But you have to buy so there's lots of underlying things here that your kids can really latch onto to see the truth about how a market basket works. It's out there Googling price indexes because, you know, that's what I do. And the U.S. Travel Association, so an industry group for all things travel, produces a travel price index. And here's what they say. They have a TPI, not a Christmas price index, but a travel price index. You can see that from October 2021, from October 2020, so over the course of the past year, travel has increased 14.4% overall. Now, how did they get this? They picked items off the CPI data, out of the CPI data that they believed were relevant for travel and capturing what's happening with the cost of travel. So look at what they've got here. They've got other recreation services. They've got alcohol and food away from home. Now there's lots of categories of food at home, but they've excluded that from travel. They're including other lodging, including hotels and motels. They've got a variety of transportations, and then they've broken some of those out. So airline fares have actually decreased in the past year. But motor fuel is up almost 50%. So you're starting to tease out this idea that some prices are going up, Some prices are going down. So I will give you my personal example of living out this this travel price index and how consumer choices drive your own experience with inflation. Because I went to Texas to see my mom over Veterans Day weekend. I could have driven, I think, about 600 miles to Texas. My car gets 30 miles a gallon or so. So, you know, I'll not do the math, because I guess that'd be 20 gallons of gasoline at $3. Let's say it's cheap and it's $3 a tank. I'm going to pay $60 each way, probably closer to $70 each way for fuel. I was able to get a round trip ticket for $98. I and didn't have to pay for a hotel or meals along the way. So the lower cost of an airline ticket was much preferable. And I was able to substitute out an airline ticket for buying gas to drive to Texas. On the other hand, this agency, this think tank, this industry group can't do that. They have to include airline. If they're going to consistently compare this travel price index over time, they can't choose to fly instead of drive. They've got to include both, because those are both representative of consumer choices, and they have to keep those consistent over time. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? Y'all can shout me down if you got a question.
Quick question, actually. I've always been a little confused about how they make adjustments to the market basket. They talk about having a consistent market basket with the average prices for the years 82, 83, and 84. But like you guys were saying earlier, cell phones are now in the market basket. We didn't really have cell phones back then. How do they make those adjustments, and still, how are they still able to kind of compare to previous years and use a CPI?
So I've got that on the slide. So hold that thought, because we're going to talk about that in just a minute.
Awesome.
So,
thanks.
sure thing. So here's an idea. I constructed a Princeton's breakfast price index because I really, really like breakfast. So I went to the BLS website. I copied the food stuff. And here were some of the categories that I would consider vital to a breakfast price index. Fresh biscuits, rolls, and muffins. Also sweet rolls, coffee, cakes, and donuts. Bacon, breakfast sausage, and related products is the overall category, but then you can break it out here. Bacon and related products, breakfast sausage. Here's where your experience with inflation is different. So if you choose bacon, the year-over-year inflation rate for bacon is 20.2%. The year-over-year inflation for breakfast sausage is only 8.3%. Whole milk is going up faster than milk in general. Cheese and related products are actually cheaper than a year ago. That's about the only thing on here that's cheaper. But you can see what we've got here. We've got fresh fruits, the overall category of fresh fruits and vegetables, then a subcategory of fresh fruits, and then it broken down into apples, bananas, citrus fruits. And then citrus fruits is broken down into oranges, including tangerines, that are up 2.1%, less than the overall citrus category of 3.7. I have potatoes for my hash browns, an overall category of non-alcoholic beverages and beverage materials, and you have juices, carbonated drinks for all you. I plan enough teacher workshops to have Diet Coke at breakfast when I do a teacher workshop. Non-carbonated, frozen non-carbonated, coffee and tea. Look at this. Coffee is different than roasted coffee, is different than instant coffee. Turns out if you're willing to drink nasty instant coffee, you're seeing less impact on your bottom line, on your grocery bill, than if you buy roasted coffee or regular coffee. Get down here and you see butter and margarine. Butter has risen less than margarine, and on down it goes. All of those components are part of what I would consume for breakfast. Where you can find all this information is on the news release, and you just go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'll show you the home page if my internet holds up. But you can see it's got all these categories. And what I was thinking was that if you really had kids that were interested and you really wanted them to think about diving into this data, here's the home page. You can just click on the Consumer Price Index right here on the home page, and it tells you everything. I'm using the Table 2 Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, detailed expenditure category. Table 1 has the higher level stuff. I went to the details. So you can use that, and they can pick out what they would want to have at a July the 4th picnic. What would they want to have on a typical vacation with their family, right? They can make their own experience and then find all of the individual categories that would be necessary for that, and look at what prices are going up and what prices are going down. They're making their own market basket. All right, get back. All right, so besides the fun
Hey, Princeton,
yeah,
would you be willing to share that spreadsheet you just made? Because that might save them.
I'll
that might save
email
them
it to you.
yeah, all right, and I'll send it out there because that might
Yeah.
save. That's a really cool idea. Yeah.
I mean, it's deeper than you would necessarily need to go. It is certainly deeper than you need to go for the standards, but I think it's an interesting way to get kids. If we're really talking about, I'll get on my soapbox for 10 seconds here, that we're making citizens out of these kids, right? And they need to understand that the headline is not the entire story. So Consumer Price Index, a broadly used inflation measure, but one with very specific things. First of all, it is a cost of living index. So the BLS is charged by Congress by statute to collect data that indexes the cost of living so that it can be used for government benefits, government cost of living salary increases, for a whole variety of uses across the nation. You will see, if you look at the definition of the CPI, it is supposed to represent the purchasing patterns of urban consumers, but that's a little bit of a misnomer, or at least it reflects just how urbanized we are as a society, because it encompasses the purchasing patterns of over 90% of the population. And I think this is fascinating, and it tells you just how in-depth this process is. There are 4 different samples that are all interrelated that are used to construct what is finally released once a month as the Consumer Price Index. First of all, there's a geographic sample to determine the areas where they are going to collect prices. There's a consumer survey, actually a couple of different ones, that determine how items are weighted in that market basket. There's a separate survey to find out where consumers shop, right? So that they can sample the prices at the appropriate places. And then finally, a team of about 500 people goes out, some monthly, some bi-monthly, to collect actual prices and compute how much people are paying. One of the things about the Consumer Price Index is it's what consumers are actually paying. So it does include sales tax and excise taxes. So if you're in Georgia and you pay 7% sales tax, the amount that's reflected in the Consumer Price Index for your spending patterns includes the sales tax that you pay. There's 83,000 individual items that are purchased in 23,000 different locations in 75 cities. So a tremendous amount of data. That all those prices are grouped into 8 major groups: food and beverage, housing, apparel, transportation, medical care, recreation, education and communication, and other goods and services. And this gets to Laura's question. there is a regular rotation based on those consumer purchasing surveys that individual items are rotated in and out every 4 years. So 1/8 of that basket of 83,000 items is replaced every 6 months. So there is a regular update to this. And that's really apart from the idea that there is a continuing efforts to adjust for quality. So if a car is deemed to be safer and the car goes because it has a better bumper, and the bumper costs $10 extra to produce, but the car goes up in price by $100, that's recorded as a $90 price index increase because the car went up literally minus the cost, it went up in cost $90 for the perception of higher quality. Does that answer your question, Laura? Wasn't it Laura? Did you ask?
That was me. Yeah, mostly, except I still don't understand how you can compare. Like if you look at CPI numbers, I don't know what they are, but since, and maybe I'm wrong here, but does the government still use that 82 to 84 average?
So they use a whole variety. So if you look, let me show you. So it's all statistically, let me show you the one that I was just on. And the links to this are in the notes of my PowerPoint when you get it from Chris. Oh, come on. Why does it go so slow? So this is overall 82 to 84 is the base year. That the base year, it's always indexing back to that. But you'll also notice that the base year is different. There are different base years for different products. So that is all accounted for in the way that the statistics are calculated. They can use a variety of base years, and then they do the complex math to make it all work together.
I'm just going to trust their math on that.
Yeah, there's lots of really smart people working on this. So like wireless telephone services are not seasonally adjusted, and they're based on a 2009 base year.
I see. Okay, so they use all kinds of base years.
Yeah, and then they'll adjust. I mean, you're talking about massive. I mean, you're talking about 83,000 items. So basically, there's cells for all 83,000 items, and also there's for each one of those items, there's price data from 75 different regions and multiple outlets in each region. So it's a huge amount of data. I mean, massive.
Gotcha. I am no actuary. I will just
no,
math and keep it simple.
Yeah. So I would say, I think for your kids, the thing to say is that the sample, that it does change over time, and that they recognize that, and there are statistical methods to address those changes over time. I mean, I think that's and that is entirely honest. I mean, I took, in fact, those two slides on consumer price index, I took from the section chief at BLS who is in charge of the section that produces the consumer price index. So he's literally the boss of all the people who compute the consumer price index.
Perfect.
So he's an authority.
Awesome. Thanks.
I do think one of the interesting things about it's a misconception about the price indexes is that housing is priced using a rental equivalence. So if you live in Metro Atlanta, the value of your house has probably gone up in the past year, but your mortgage hasn't, right? So how do you adjust for that? They use rental equivalencies to kind of tease out the value versus what it would what your opportunity cost for living in that house is. So what could you get if you were to rent it out to someone? My light just dimmed. Well, hope that's not a bad sign. The other price index that really matters to the Fed is personal consumption expenditures price index. It's computed by the BEA, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, using information from the BLS. So here's some differences, and you're going to get this. The big one here is that the personal consumption expenditures has a basket that changes from quarter to quarter. And it's all the expenditures made on behalf of household, not just the ones made by consumers. Where that really makes a difference is medical care. So think about that you pay $20, a $20 copay to go to the doctor. Your insurance company gets billed $110. So that doctor visit cost $130, was spent on your behalf to acquire medical services, but you only spent 20. The CPI would only reflect that 20. The PCE is going to try to account for all of that. So because of that, medical care is a much more significant part of the PCE basket. So you've got the weights here. You can see that housing is lower in the PCE, and medical care is much higher. And then there's kind of the slack is made up in other goods and services. Those are the two big standard measures. But then you can see here that there is a lot of science and a lot of economics, especially at different Fed offices, that are trying to tease out more truth from these numbers. So you've got Cleveland Fed is particularly interested in the CPI. The Atlanta Fed has a sticky CPI. The Dallas Fed has a trimmed mean PCE. The San Francisco Fed has a cyclical core PCE. This is a list that Raphael Bostic used in a recent speech that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. He used all of these measures to compare, and his monetary policy advisory team is looking at all of these measures to try to tease out the truth about inflation. So it's not a one headline measure. There's lots of ways to chop all of this data and to put together a story to get to the bottom of what's going on. Like Chris said, this is a pretty standard slide. Borrowers gain when there's inflation because you borrowed with
back up in my chest.
What now?
Do some more inflation up there.
All right. Yeah, so borrowers gain and lenders lose. I'm going to get to some more stuff. If y'all have questions about that, we'll do it. The old truism that inflation is too much money chasing too few goods is absolutely true in the long run. Milton Friedman had it right. Monetary growth does in fact get to inflation, but there's some really big short-term causes. That was a great clip that Chris played for you because it got into all of this, that there is expectations, there is excess demand, and there are supply shocks that are all at work in the current economy that are changing the way we experience inflation right now. So what are the experts saying? This is from a Raphael Bostic speech. It's on the Atlanta Fed website. He emphasized what the woman from Harvard was saying, that this is different than ever before. Inflation dynamics are really importantly different now. He likes the word episodic, not transitory, because he thinks that people are confusing transitory with short duration. And he doesn't know that it's going to be a short duration. Like the woman said, this could last for a while into 2023 because these are intransigent, I can't say that word tonight. These are issues that are likely to stick around for a while. Like she said, the supply chain disruptions and the supply bottlenecks are real. the flood of demand coming out of the lockdowns is very important. All of those have the chance of shaping the expectations of consumers. And you've got a new policy framework from the Federal Reserve that's called Flexible Average Inflation Targeting. And because it's the Federal Reserve, we make an acronym out of it and we call it FATE, Flexible Average Inflation Targeting, so that we're looking for that average of 2% over time. I would underline one thing that Chris said, how wealthy people are planning to high income earners. The thing about this recovery coming out of the pandemic is that the top income spectrums have recovered much more quickly and much more impressively, whereas job gains in the bottom quintile or the bottom quarter of the population have lagged far behind. So there's a real difference there. This is a story that just came out this morning on Bloomberg, an interview with a person from Atlanta, Becky Gunn, and she had three really interesting things. Inflation is above the national average in Atlanta. We're higher than all of these: St. Louis, Phoenix, New York, and San Francisco. We win. We have the highest inflation rate. Part of that is that Phoenix and Atlanta both have the year-over-year highest inflation in housing. Now, here's the problem. And you can really see it clearly with the third place winner of high inflation in housing is Detroit. The problem is that Detroit had historically low prices. Phoenix and Atlanta have long sold themselves as a destination for businesses based on their affordability, right? So as people, San Francisco didn't have a lot of ways to go on upward pressure on prices. Growth there is minimal because even if you start high and go a little bit higher, it's not as big a percentage as if you start medium and go higher. So we do have a lot of challenges with year over year, but that's also an ongoing trend. And once again, it's going to be reflected in what Chris was saying with what is your time horizon? We're getting lots of jobs back. We're back nearly at pre-pandemic levels. So that's a good thing. And the last thing I'm going to say, and I've used this slide lots of times, please help your kids know and help them convince their parents that this is not a hyperinflation episode. You know, in Zimbabwe in 2008, prices were doubling once a day. Overall prices were doubling once a day. A 6 to 7% inflation rate is not, annualized inflation rate is not a 98% daily inflation rate. It's not the same thing. There's activities and stuff on our website. You guys probably all know because you guys are the true believers, but the link is there if you want to get activities and stuff like that. And my email will be on there. And hopefully I left Chris enough time to do his cool Christmas activity. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I want to stop sharing. Sorry.
Questions for Princeton or Federal Reserve related?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I've either bored everybody or.
I doubt that.
Princeton, this is Tiffany Fannin. I have a question for you.
Sure.
The likelihood that the Fed is going to start raising interest rates based on some of this information that they're getting? So,
Raphael, I will say once again that the opinions expressed are my own. Raphael said that he supports. Right now, at the last FOMC meeting, they announced that they are going to begin tapering off the asset purchases that they started in response. So they're already buying less. It's like they're pulling their foot off the accelerator has been pushed all the way down, but they're letting off the accelerator, but the accelerator is still depressed because they're still guaranteeing a quantity of purchases every month. That will go away before there's a rate hike, but Raphael has not ruled out 1 to 2 rate hikes next year. So sometime next year, Raphael, and once again, he's the one that's on the FOMC. What he's saying in some interviews as of last Friday is that he would anticipate the tapering to continue, and he would not rule out 1 to 2 rate hikes next year. And I'm going to leave it with his wisdom because he gets paid the big bucks to sit on the FOMC. But great question. Anybody else?
All right, awesome. I want to share just one more thing before I get into the lesson that I think you might be interested in using with your students, and that is Tiffany had a great question while we were going. She said, well, what's happened to medical care since we've been going? So all I did to sort of find that is I literally Googled BLS inflation medical care, and it brought me to the data finder, which I believe is in beta version. And it basically, you come here and you type in whatever it is you're looking for, and you can find it pretty quickly. So this is the seasonally adjusted medical care services. So this is the services. This is the doctor side of what they're charging, and I have it back to 2019 here, and so it increased. Now I don't know. I haven't spent enough time with it to know what the y-axis is actually measuring. I don't know if that's per hour. I doubt that's per hour. Anyway, but you get a trend line of nothing else, and we can see.
Chris, I'm guessing that's going to be the index value for back in when, like Laura was talking about, the 82 to 84 would be 100.
Gotcha.
And then that's indexed, so it's up 5.25 times in January from 82.
Gotcha. Which that makes sense, right? Yeah. So that's probably about right. Okay. Thanks, Brent. I appreciate that. So anyway, but you get your trend line, and that's what's important. And that's the same thing that I was trying to point out when I showed you the Econ Express thing earlier. It's just a general trend of those services. So that's all medical services, all kind of put together there. So yeah, BLS is your friend. It takes a little bit of time to get used to. But if you can, and I know teachers don't have time, I totally get that. This is probably something for GCEE to look at maybe in our next round of workshops is, what can you do that's quick and easy with BLS? We've done that a little bit in the past with Fred, but not so much with BLS. But BLS has just tons and tons of information. Another interesting site that I sort of discovered in researching for this particular workshop, the U.S. Energy and Information Administration. They're also really good about keeping track of gas prices, as you would imagine, right? Because they're the U.S. Energy Information Administration. They tend to present it a little differently. And I've actually found that they have a couple of graphs that are a little easier to use. But guess where the information comes from? You got it, BLS, right? Again, so for example, the gas prices. And again, it's a fine line here because you don't want students to be like, oh, gas prices equal inflation. But at the same time, they're hearing a lot about it. And I think it's important for them to understand what they're hearing. What I like about this is its length. So we're talking about gas prices here all the way back to, the early 90s, 93, up to modern day. And then it's got this nice feature, as you can see me doing now, where you sort of scroll along it and it gives you the exact dollar amount. So just to show you that I wasn't lying when we started the Kahoot, I did want to show you that. So at the end of October, we were at 338, and October of 2011. No, I just passed it. We were at 350. So we were actually more expensive in 2011. And I believe at least these are nominal dollars. I think it doesn't say anywhere that they've been adjusted for anything. So like just nominally, we were more expensive in 2011, and we were more expensive than that in 2008. But of course, everybody probably remembers that. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to point out is it matters how you measure it. These are monthly averages. So this is month to month, year over year. If I do annual averages, watch how the graph will change. Look at that. That's interesting. So you almost are like excited, sort of. You're like, oh yeah, gas prices are going down when we measure it annually. And so this gets to the heart of dealing with statistics and how are you reading those statistics and how are you using those statistics. I've said, and a lot of you have heard me say this at workshops before, it's all not that we're going to get another course and we don't need another course necessarily, but I wish there was more time to get into the statistical side of economics because it really matters how we present information. And I think just being a good digital citizen, but a citizen in general, you need to understand that. Like when you see a graph, what are you actually looking at? So I know I've been sort of thinking about that as I build more lessons and building this into more stuff that the council does. So you probably see that come up in the future. All right. So what I want to leave you with is, the so what? So what? All right, cool. We've heard a lot of really cool stuff over the last hour or so. What do I do with it with students? And I struggle with this one a little bit because I was trying to think like, yeah, it's important that a student knows what the CPI is because you're going to hear about it all the time. And it is super important that they understand how arbitrary it is. But what really ultimately is going to affect them and what's going to matter to them is how households respond to inflation. And so on slide, what is this? On slide 17, I've got 2 links here. Both of these are links on slide 17, and they take you to an activity that you can do with your students. I say an activity, it's really a worksheet. Let's call it what it is. A simple worksheet you can do with the students that's going to get them to look at 3 households. And well, here, I'll just show you. I don't know why I'm talking about it. I can show you. So here's what you would give the students, and then we'll very quickly look at the answer key, and then we'll be done. So this is what the students would get. Real simple. You've got a table here with 3 households, household A, household B, household C. You've got their nominal amount that they have set aside for holiday gifts. I tried to be very careful about using the word Christmas. I know that causes issues for some people. So I used holiday spending, actually, is what I said most of the time. There it says gifts, but I think I use holiday spending more frequently. So this is just the amount of money that these households have set aside for holiday spending, right? That might mean gifts. It might mean going out to eat. It might mean throwing a party. It might mean whatever, right? And the first step is for the students to use this formula, which most of you probably recognize is just converting nominal to real, to determine how much money each of these households is really getting to spend over the course of 3 years on the holidays. And so household A has set aside $3,500, which is pretty high. It's actually really high compared to the national average. But they've set aside the same amount. They have it like it comes out of their paycheck or something and goes into a savings account or something every year. And they in their mind that we're going to set aside $3,500 every year for holiday spending, and that's going to be our budget. Household B is slowly increasing, but it doesn't seem to be at first glance at any particular rate. It's like, hey, next year we'll throw $50 more in the holiday fund, and then we'll throw an additional $150 on top of that to get to $1,200. Why are they doing that? And then household C is actually spending less. So basically the task for the students is to calculate the real values, and they've got the formula, so it shouldn't cause them any real heartache here. Although I've taught long enough, I know just giving them the formula is not enough. Some of them still won't get it. And then they have a series of questions that they answer here. So we'll just jump straight to the answer key because we're teachers and we can do that. That's it's one of the best parts of being a teacher, right? You get the answer keys. So here's what happens with your numbers. I'll see if I can zoom in on this a little bit here. Let's go to 50% maybe. There we go. A little better. So here's what happens with your numbers. Should be no surprise here. Household A, remember, is spending $3,500 a year, but look at their real expenditures. What's happening? They're getting less real dollars to spend on the holidays each year. So what does that mean? Well, it could mean a variety of things. Could mean they're buying fewer gifts. Could mean they're having a less lavish party, but their money's not going as far because the prices are increasing. And here I just made up these numbers. I tried to keep it quasi-realistic to What's happened this year is year 3. It doesn't stick right to that. This is not a typo. I did the math. So you'll notice household B ends up with $1,000 real dollars to spend every year. How are they managing that? Oh, I'm sorry. This I got to fix this on the student one. Actually, I'll do this right now. That should be 1,100, and this should be 1,030. There you go. So they're essentially keeping up with inflation, right? And then household C, look at what's happening in household C. They're getting $2,500 to spend on the holidays. Then they only get $2,038, and then they only get $901. Right? So we'll talk through some of the questions here real quick. In year 1, what do you notice about the nominal and real values for the households? What do you notice about them? Somebody shout it out or type it in. What do you notice about year 1, the nominal and real values?
They stay the same.
They stay the same. Thank you. Appreciate that. Who was that? Jessica? Thanks, Jessica. Yeah. Why do they stay the same? Because I have arbitrarily picked year 1 as the base. Arbitrarily picked. Who picked? Chris Cannon. Why? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's when you go back to that Econ Express thing and you're like, it doesn't matter. Just pick a year. 82 to 84 seems to work. Whatever. You could use 1960. You could use 2001. You probably wouldn't use 2020, but you could. You could, as long as you kept the relative price differences the same. Oh, thanks, Laura. Yeah, I appreciate that. I did. Yeah, I'll fix that. Actually, I think I got to fix it on the general thing anyway. The second question is, if I go back to the household 2 sets aside $3,500 a year no matter what. Based on your observations, how might this impact their ability to buy gifts over time? I actually already said that one, so we'll skip over that one. All right, let's talk about 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are my favorite 2 questions. Well, 3 and 4 and 6 are my favorite questions here. What is household B doing to ensure they keep pace with inflation? What are they, and I'll put household B back up here. What is household B doing?
They're spending more from year to year.
Yes, thanks, Tiffany. Perfect. Nominally, they're actually taking more money. They're literally going to the bank and putting more money in the holiday fund. All right, and I need students to see that. They're grabbing more dollars out of the pocket. Now, question 4 is tags along with that. Here's question 4. Assume that household B's total household income has remained the same for all 3 years. Remember, we're just seeing the amount they spend on holidays. If household B's total household income has remained the same for all 3 years, but they're putting more in the holiday fund, how does this relate to opportunity cost?
No funny character.
How does this, somebody impress me here. How does this relate to opportunity cost?
They're giving up something else.
Yep. Like what? What could they be giving up to do this?
Spending less on a summer vacation.
Perfect. Right. So that money's coming from somewhere. And I would want the students to say that. If their household income has been identical for 3 years, don't get into, I mean, you could get into the fact that their real income has gone down, which is true. And nominally, they're putting more money in the holiday fund than they're choosing not to do something else. And whatever that is, doesn't matter. In the answer key, it says that it could be a variety of things. Summer expenses, they might be taking it out of savings, right? They might not be saving as much. But that's what's going on with household B. So anyway, question 5 is what could be going on with household C? That's just want students to really just think through that. Maybe somebody lost their job. Maybe you had young children and they've grown up. Maybe somebody left the house. Maybe somebody died. I don't know. Like there's a lot of reasons why you might purposely, maybe they're just choosing to spend less. Maybe they're like, oh, we're not going to be so consumer heavy, whatever. And by the way, all these numbers are kind of high, but I wanted them to sort of be like, I wanted to see some movement. I don't know if anybody knows off the top. Does anybody know off the top of their head the average? I mean, I know, but I don't. What was the average people are looking to spend this year? Anybody know the average household? It's $673. $673 is what averages out in surveys, at least. People are planning on spending on the holidays this year. I'm going to leave you with one slide here in a minute that shows you what I want to get to in question 6, and that is Question 6 here says, assume you read a social media post that says, no one likes inflation, it affects everyone the same. Based on your work here, how might you respond to show you disagree with that statement? And I'm forcing the students to disagree with it because that's a wrong statement. I don't want to give them the option of, what do you think? No, that's a wrong statement. I want to teach you as a citizen, as somebody reading social media, to recognize wrong statements when you see them, but then answer politely if possible. And then I've got an answer there in the answer key. So last thing here, I'll leave you with this is not true for everyone, of course, as it never is in econ. This is a Deloitte survey, and they were trying to figure out how many people aren't spending any holiday related spending this year. And a little bit of a sad number on this one. We're up about almost to 12%. I think it comes to 11.76, something like that. 11.5% of Americans are saying they're not planning on doing any holiday related spending. And that's anything. We're not doing a party, we're not doing gifts, we're not doing anything. And you notice that's quite high. Even compared to last year, which you might have thought last year would have been high. This year it's even worse. And you got to believe inflation has something to do with that. That's speculative, of course. But there you go. So I hope you got something out of tonight. I really, really appreciate you being here on a Monday night. This will be up on GCEE's YouTube page tomorrow. I know we went through a ton of information very quickly. I am about to put in the chat the link to this presentation. I will have to email you Princeton's, which I will do tomorrow. So if you don't get it from me, because some of you, I think, didn't register, I just sent you the link to the event. Please make sure you email me tomorrow and remind me, hey, I would like Princeton slides as well, which means Princeton, you got to remember to send them to me.
They are done. They are in your inbox.
Oh, perfect. Even better. All right. I appreciate that, sir. So thanks everybody for being here. I'll do a quick plug in case you're wondering, like, dang, Chris, did you spend all that time making these nice, pretty slides? I did not. They come from Slides Carnival. What you don't know about Slides Carnival, they're free templates and they make really pretty slides. And I've just recently discovered them, and they've got dozens and dozens and dozens of different versions out there. All right. So we are officially finished. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. We can hang out for a few minutes if you have other questions. Otherwise, I really appreciate everyone being here. Thanks a lot. I hope you have a great rest of the semester. And as you know, the Fed and GC, we're always here. Please email us, ask us questions if you need to. And